Hi, my name is Will Franklin.
From Austin, Texas. Married, 2 young kids. Let's talk about school choice in Texas. This video is part 1 in a 3-part series. Today we're looking at the numbers, the economics of school choice. A few quick facts. Texas has never spent more on education than it does now. We spend nearly $13,000 per student, and we have nearly 5 million public school students in the state. We spend nearly $60 billion on education each biennium. Nearly 80 if you throw in higher education. Do the math on those per student numbers. A class of 15 kids equals $190,000. A class of 20 kids equals $255,000.
How many teachers do you know making $250,000 a year?
How is this even possible? One reason? There is a nationwide problem. Non-teaching staff growth is far outpacing growth for both students and teachers. And in Texas, it's even worse. And if you go back to the 1950s, there's an even more conspicuous swelling of school staff.
And we have to ask ourselves, what is the purpose of our public education system in Texas? Educating our kids or an adult jobs program?
In Texas, growth of non-teaching staff has outpaced student growth more than 3 to 1. Far worse than the national average. But imagine for a second if Texas had been able to grow its non-teaching staff at roughly the same rate of student growth. Well, for one, this all-staff figure would be a lot lower. We'd have a lot more money to work with. We're talking $7.4 billion per year worth of excess non-teaching staff. Let's look at administrators in particular since 1998. Teacher growth has essentially kept pace with student growth, but we have 453% more administrators over that time. Texas is an outlier. You can see the growth in all other 49 states plus Washington, D.C. The average administrator growth was 19%.
A far cry from the 453% here in Texas. So what could Texas do with so much extra money every year?
Other than hiring a bunch of additional teachers. Well, every teacher in the state could get a massive raise. Or we could fund school choice scholarships for nearly 1 million students and their families. Or how about property tax relief? Non-fun fact, Texas has the highest property tax burden of all non-income tax states. Or, we could eliminate the entire franchise tax. And let's talk about taxes, because Texas homeowners are gonna feel even more hurt on their wallet from government unless we act soon. Right now, Texas is a youthful state, and over the next decade and a half, we'll have more than 1/3 more school-age students than we do right now. At the exact same time, we'll have 100% more. That's double Texans 65 and older. Nationally, that's the 5th fastest growth in each category. Today in Texas, the age dependency ratio, to get that figure, you add the number of young people to the number of older people, then you divide that figure by the number of working age people, it's 60%. By 2030, it'll be 74%. Why does that even matter? In Texas, our schools are primarily funded through property taxes. Once you're 65, you get much higher exemptions on your property taxes. Once those funds start drying up, those of us still under 65 will have to make up the difference. Billions upon billions of dollars in higher property taxes in a state with already high property taxes.
Yeesh!
If not higher taxes, then much higher debt. So let's talk debt. Texas has low state debt, but once you add in local debt, we have some of the highest debt levels in the entire country. And this local debt undermines the entire Texas model, handcuffing our economy. Debt can also be thought of as a tax that we pay for decades. And Texas has some of the highest school debt in the country already. Sure, some of that money went towards building classrooms, but a lot
Anyone
didn't.
who pays property taxes, taxes for your local school district, spending $63 million for a high school football stadium.
12,000-seat football stadium and event center. $62.8 million.
The most expensive high school football stadium ever built.
Taxpayers are asking what went wrong.
I love football, but these are dollars unavailable for actual instruction going forward.
Indeed, debt service by Texas school districts has ballooned in recent decades, and after a brief flattening out during the Great Recession, signs point to an upward trajectory once again.
And school districts are already gearing up for the next debt issuing bonanza. Giddy up?
Wait a minute, this sounds interesting.
I'm back in the saddle again.
But acting like we're back in the saddle again is not smart fiscal policy. Yes, Texas is growing, but Local debt is growing 2.5 times faster. And city and county taxes are growing 2.5 times faster than household income. Anyone can see it's just out of whack. It's unsustainable. It's time to start voting no in some of these local bond elections. Let me challenge you. Make your default no, and make the district really justify taking on more debt. Vote yes if they make a good case. But all too often the default vote for the tiny group of voters, and we're talking 10 to 15% of voters here, is just yes, an unthinking yes. As a parent, I know it can be hard, but sometimes you just have to say no.
As long as the schools are governmental, as long as they are financed and administered by political entities, they are a source of political power.
Milton Friedman won the Nobel Prize in Economics and served under Ronald Reagan, and he's absolutely right on this. There are great teachers in good public schools all across the state, and I brag on Texas public schools all the time. But no entity, whether it's government or anything else, deserves a protected monopoly on educating our kids.
Again, we have to stop allowing our education system to be used as a politically administered adult jobs program. It's time to focus on the kids, on the education.
So how would school choice work? I don't have all the time in this particular video to get into every little detail, but education savings accounts.
Empower families to save for education, tax deductions, grants to families, scholarship tax credits, reward businesses and individuals for funding students, expand charter schools, raise or eliminate state caps, streamline approvals for new charters, better procedures for parent triggers and home rule school districts, and finally, school finance reform. Texas's general revenue budget is already more than 50% education, counting higher ed. About a third is healthcare. Projections from various think tanks have both education and healthcare hitting 50% over the next 25-30 years. Medicaid alone could reach 50% of the all funds budget in just a couple of decades, and that's only a fraction of the entire healthcare wedge. Meanwhile, everything else will just continue to grow. Something's got to give. We're either going to have dramatic slashing of public safety and transportation and just about everything else, or drastically higher taxes, or cripplingly higher debt, or some combination of all three. And if Texas has those problems, the Texas miracle will dry up in a flash, and we'll just be another California with worse weather. Unless we act. The good news is that school choice math makes sense. Texas could save tens of billions of dollars every few years or so by simply bending those cost curves downward. One way to do that is to actually invest in the students rather than the buildings and the bureaucrats. Let the money follow the students. And let students and families decide how best to educate their kids. Even the public school districts do well financially under school choice programs. It's a win-win scenario.
And quite frankly, it may be our best and only hope of staying fiscally solvent, economically vibrant, and for best educating the next generation of Texas kids. Hey, hopefully you enjoyed watching this video. I enjoyed making it a lot. Stay tuned because we're gonna have 2 other videos, these 2 right over here, coming out soon. One on the freedom and one on the results. Leave a comment, shoot me an email, whatever, a tweet. I'm at Willisms. I will actually read them and maybe even incorporate something you say into the next video. If you like this video, comment below, give me a thumbs up, subscribe, and share it on social media. Everything helps. Thanks again for watching.